Usually, when we think about emotions, we kind of just operate on this assumption that they're temporary visitors, right?
Yeah, totally. They come and go.
Exactly. Like sadness washes over you during some poignant movie scene, or I don't know, you get intensely frustrated by a sudden roadblock at work. But eventually, the feeling dissipates.
Right. You go back to normal.
Yeah, you return to your baseline. You are fundamentally the one sitting behind the wheel. But I want you to imagine for a second if your emotions weren't just these fleeting responses.
Okay, I'm with you.
Imagine if they were like these potent, undeniable forces that completely hijack the steering wheel, lock the doors, and just slam on the gas.
Wow, yeah. I mean, that fundamentally changes how you move through the entire world.
Right. And that is our mission for today's deep dive. We are exploring the intensely complex and honestly often misunderstood emotional landscape of borderline personality disorder, or BPD.
It's such a crucial topic, and there's so much to unpack here.
There really is.
Yeah.
And to even begin grasping this reality, the source text gives us this incredible analogy. Think of an emotional volume knob,
Yeah.
right? But it's stuck at maximum.
Oh, I like that. Maximum volume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every single feeling, whether it's like profound joy or paralyzing terror or just deep grief, it's experienced at the absolute highest intensity. And the mute button is completely broken.
Which, it's exactly why the clinical description so often relies on that phrase, emotional roller coaster, because you're just constantly going up and down at breakneck speeds.
Right. That makes sense.
But to really understand what's happening, we have to look past the metaphor, right? We have to look into the actual neurobiology. We are essentially talking about a hyperreactive amygdala here.
Okay. The emotion center of the brain.
Exactly. The brain's threat detection and emotion center is just firing on all cylinders. And at the same time, the prefrontal cortex, which is, the area responsible for logic, pacing, emotional regulation.
The part that's supposed to calm you down.
Yeah, right. That part is really struggling to hit the brakes. And what's fascinating is that our understanding of this actually has a pretty flawed clinical history.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, the term borderline itself, it was actually just kind of thrown around back in the 1930s by psychoanalysts.
Oh, wow. That far back.
Yeah, and they believed patients were teetering on the borderline between neurosis and psychosis. It was this vague, almost dismissive catch-all category.
That sounds super marginalizing.
It was. I mean, it wasn't until the 1970s that it was clearly defined as a distinct, recognizable syndrome.
So the terminology itself carries all this outdated baggage. Like, it makes it sound like an edge case,
Exactly.
when the reality of living with it is entirely central. I mean, it's overwhelming, and it's deeply rooted in how the brain processes the environment.
That's the crux of it right there.
Yeah.
The shift from 1930s psychoanalysis to modern neurobiology, it changes everything about how we view this.
It has to, right? Because it changes the blame.
Absolutely. And the overarching takeaway here for our deep dive is profoundly compassionate. These maximum volume emotions, they're just one facet of a person's nervous system.
Right.
They absolutely do not negate a person's capability or intellect or their worth.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of that high volume, because if your amygdala is constantly blasting the alarm, it completely distorts how you perceive the people around you, right?
Oh, 100%. It shifts your entire reality.
I was trying to conceptualize this mechanism based on the text, and it feels a lot like watching a television where the contrast setting is just totally broken, like cranked all the way up.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Everything on the screen is either blindingly bright white or absolute pitch black. There are zero gray midtones. So you either love a person completely and they can do no wrong.
Yeah, the all good phase.
Right? Or they make one mistake and instantly become the ultimate villain, the all bad phase.
Yeah, and in psychology, that mechanism is called splitting, or, all or nothing thinking.
Splitting. Okay.
When the brain is just overwhelmed by that kind of emotional intensity, it literally cannot process nuance. Nuance requires a calm prefrontal cortex.
Which we know is struggling to hit the brake.
Exactly. So the brain just categorizes things into extreme, simple buckets, like safe or dangerous, perfect or evil. It's doing this just to quickly make sense of a chaotic internal state.
But living in a world of blinding whites and pitch blacks, I mean, that has to be neurologically exhausting.
It is exhausting beyond measure.
Which brings us to another metaphor from the text that I think captures that specific exhaustion beautifully. It's like trying to sail a small boat in a Category 5 storm.
Yes. The storm is a perfect descriptor for that internal state, just sheer chaos.
But let's look at the actual winds driving that storm, because from what the text says, it's essentially a profound, deep-seated fear of abandonment.
That's the core of it, yeah.
People hold on to relationships, I mean, even demonstrably toxic, damaging ones,
Yeah.
with an absolute white-knuckle grip.
And you look at that from the outside, and you wonder, why don't they just let go?
Exactly. But when your internal baseline is sheer chaos, being thrown overboard into isolation, it feels like literal death. It's a desperate survival mechanism.
What's fascinating here is to understand why that survival mechanism triggers so easily, we really have to look at the quote-unquote seeds of the disorder.
Right. Where does it start?
Often this traces back to early developmental trauma or environments that just fundamentally felt unsafe. And it's crucial to understand that unsafe doesn't always mean like cinematic, overt abuse.
Oh, that's a really important distinction. What does it mean then?
It frequently means chronic emotional invalidation.
Meaning, like, a child's internal reality is constantly denied or ignored by the people who are supposed to be guiding them.
Precisely. If a highly sensitive child is constantly told you're too sensitive or stop crying, you have nothing to be sad about.
Oh, man, that's so common.
Right. But over time, they learn that their internal compass is just broken. Those seeds of invalidation take root and they literally tangle around the developing brain's attachment system.
Wow.
If you can't trust your own feelings, you can't form a cohesive sense of self. You become that boat without a rudder we were talking about.
Constantly shifting your personality, your opinions, your entire identity based on whoever happens to be in the room with you.
Exactly, just to ensure that they approve of you and they won't leave.
This completely reframes our standard cultural assumptions about trauma. I mean, look at Elizabeth's story from the text.
Oh, yes. Elizabeth's case is a perfect example of this.
On paper, Elizabeth's family was loving. The house was safe, the fridge was full, the bills were paid. Yet she carried this indescribable emptiness.
Just a total void.
Yeah, this visceral, agonizing yearning for connection that she just couldn't articulate. It proves you don't need a visible, dramatic external tragedy to develop this internal void.
No, you really don't. It can stem from just a subtle but profound mismatch between a highly sensitive temperament and an environment that inadvertently fails to mirror and validate that intensity.
And that lack of mirroring, it creates a physiological deficit in self-image, doesn't it?
It does. Elizabeth's emptiness is a hallmark symptom. It's not just feeling sad, it's like a literal internal vacuum.
But, okay, this is where the behavior gets highly stigmatized, and I want to push back a little on the mechanics of it.
Sure, go for it.
If the internal storm is so agonizing, right, and sitting with that vacuum of emptiness is unbearable, why do we see people making incredibly risky, sometimes destructive choices?
Like what?
Like binge eating, reckless spending, dangerous substance use. I mean, from a logical standpoint to an outsider, it just looks like intentional self-sabotage.
Well, it looks like sabotage until you view it through the lens of frantic emotional regulation.
That's frantic regulation.
Okay, tell me more.
Imagine standing on the deck of that boat we talked about, but now the deck is on fire.
Oh, gosh.
You might jump into deep, dangerous water without even knowing how to swim purely because the fire is burning you right now. You're just trying to escape the immediate pain.
So the risky behaviors are the jump into the water. Exactly. Risky behaviors provide a massive, immediate spike of dopamine and adrenaline, and that chemical rush shocks the nervous system out of that agonizing numbness or that overwhelming emotional pain, even if it's just for a few fleeting minutes.
So they're prioritizing immediate chemical relief over long-term safety?
Yes. It is a desperate coping mechanism. The text has this brilliant observation that captures this frantic survival mode perfectly.
The running quote?
Yes. It takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run twice as fast as that.
Running twice as fast just to move an inch.
Wow. They aren't trying to ruin their lives. They are sprinting at top speed just to maintain a baseline of existence.
Sprinting to stand still. I mean, that completely changes how you view the behavior.
It really does. It replaces judgment with empathy.
But let's shift gears a bit, because our core focus today is how this neurobiology does not dictate a person's capability.
Absolutely not.
The sheer resilience required to run that fast, I mean, it can actually be harnessed and directed. Right.
It absolutely can. And Carrie's journey from the source material is just a masterclass in harnessing that drive.
Oh, Carrie's story is incredible.
Yeah.
Her seeds of trauma were exceptionally severe, weren't they?
They were. She grew up with an alcoholic mother. Her parents divorced when she was an infant, and the lack of stability was just profound.
And it compounded over time.
Yeah. She developed auditory hallucinations, she engaged in self-harm as a regulation tactic, and later, she survived the profound trauma of being sexually assaulted by a physician.
Which is just a staggering weight on a nervous system.
Wow.
A betrayal by someone in a position of care.
Staggering. But here's where it gets really interesting.
She absolutely refused to let that darkness be the final word.
She did. She didn't just quietly survive. She conquered these incredibly rigid, high-pressure academic environments.
Yeah. She earned a doctorate in social work. She taught at a women's college. And then, after accomplishing all of that, she pivoted and pursued law school.
I know. It thoroughly dismantles the myth that emotional dysregulation correlates to some lack of intellect or ambition or executive function. It's just not true.
And there is a very specific, almost heartwarming detail about Carrie's time in academia that I really want to highlight for you listening.
Oh, the trophy.
Yes. When she started excelling and winning academic awards, she literally slept with her first academic trophy under her pillow, like a child with a security blanket.
Yeah. Why does that specific behavioral detail stand out to you so much?
Because it makes the drive for external validation so tangible, so physical. That trophy wasn't just a piece of metal recognizing a good essay, you know?
No, it was way more than that.
It was undeniable, physical proof of her worth in a world that had constantly signaled to her that she was broken. She used that physical object as an anchor to ground her identity.
That's a beautiful way to see it. And that external anchor, it bought her the time and the stability to do the real internal psychological work.
Because earning multiple degrees is phenomenal, but that wasn't her true clinical turning point, was it?
No, it wasn't. The real shift happened when she reached a place of profound self-acceptance. She stopped viewing her intense personality traits, like the sensitivity, the intense reactions, as a disease to be eradicated.
Right, she stopped fighting her own brain.
Exactly. She started seeing them as an integral, albeit challenging, part of her entire makeup. She integrated the parts she had labeled all bad into the whole picture.
And the behavioral changes actually followed that neurobiological fifth.
They did. Instead of defaulting to massive self-blame during marital conflicts, which is the classic reflex, thinking, I am inherently toxic and I'm ruining this.
She was able to pause.
Yes. She paused, evaluated the situation neutrally, and actively worked to resolve the differences. She also set firm boundaries, distancing herself from unhealthy family dynamics. She learned to actually steer the boat rather than just surviving the storm.
So Carrie found her footing and her anchor in academia. But this desperate need for an anchor plays out in much more chaotic ways when people try to use other people to regulate their nervous systems.
Ah, yes. You're talking about the search for external validation turning into toxic co-regulation.
Right. Let's look at Julie, for example. She was a law student.
Right, Julie.
The text mentioned she wore heavy eye makeup, almost like emotional war paint to hide behind, and she just bounced rapidly from one romance to the next.
Just jumping ships.
Yeah, the second a relationship ended, she plummeted into a depressive void until a new partner pulled her out. She was literally using them as a life raft.
And then there's Lisa's story.
Yes, Lisa, who felt completely invisible to her distant father. To get his attention, she started hanging out with a rebel crowd, getting tattoos, and even ended up dating a highly aggressive man.
Because his intense, volatile passion felt like a substitute for actual love and security.
Exactly. But in both of those cases, Julie and Lisa were outsourcing their emotional regulation.
It is an attempt to fill an internal psychological void with an external person. And the brutal reality of human psychology is that no one else can act as your permanent emotional regulator. Relying on someone else for your internal stability is like building a skyscraper on a shifting fault line. It's mathematically impossible for someone else to fill that void.
It really is. But this dynamic doesn't just isolate itself to our personal lives and romances, right? It bleeds directly into our professional ambitions.
Oh, absolutely. It creates a very unique kind of imposter syndrome.
Which brings us to Mark. And I guarantee a lot of high-achieving listeners are going to recognize Mark's pattern.
Oh, for sure.
To the outside world, this guy is a total success. He's a finance guy, always in a sharp suit, commanding the room. He looks like he has it all together.
But internally, that broken contrast style is still cranked all the way up. And for Mark, it's pointed directly at his own self-worth.
Exactly. He's plagued by this relentless internal monologue, am I actually good enough? Do I belong here? Or am I running a massive scam and everyone is about to find out?
And because the anxiety of potentially being found out and rejected was so incredibly high, he would self-sabotage.
Right. Right when things were going incredibly well with a romantic partner, or right before a major career win, he would just blow it up and push people away.
That is preemptive rejection.
Preemptive rejection, how does that work?
The subconscious logic is basically, I will push you away and ruin this so you can't abandon me
Oh,
first.
wow. I control the destruction.
Exactly. This is a direct continuation of Mark's childhood psychological loop. He grew up having to be the flawless good kid to earn his parents' approval. His worth was entirely conditional on his performance.
So as an adult, any vulnerability or potential for failure felt like a mortal threat to that facade.
Precisely.
So how does someone like Mark break that loop? Because he did. The text says he stopped sabotaging, he climbed the corporate ladder, led major teams, and finally let himself be vulnerable in love. What is the actual mechanism for that kind of transformation?
The turning point for Mark was targeted evidence-based therapy, specifically cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT.
Let's get into the mechanics of that because we hear the phrase go to therapy all the time, right? But how does CBT actually rewire a brain that is biologically stuck in all or nothing thinking?
It fundamentally targets neuroplasticity. CBT helps individuals actively identify the micro moments when their brain jumps to an extreme conclusion.
Okay, give me an example of that.
Okay, let's say a colleague doesn't smile at you in the hallway. The hyperreactive amygdala immediately signals, they hate me, I'm going to be fired, I am completely worthless.
Right, the pitch black response.
Exactly. CBT provides the tools to catch that thought before it spirals. You examine the evidence, recognize the cognitive distortion, and consciously choose a balanced thought.
Like maybe they're just having a bad day.
Yes. And by doing this repeatedly, you are physically building new gray area neural pathways in the brain. Over time, the prefrontal cortex gets stronger and the amygdala's alarm bell gets quieter.
That's amazing. It's essentially teaching the logical part of your brain how to talk down the emotional part of your brain in real time.
Beautifully put. And the clinical data on this is incredibly encouraging.
It is, isn't it?
Long-term studies show that within a few years of consistent treatment, a significant number of individuals experience substantial symptom relief.
And some even attain full recovery, right?
Yes, many achieve full clinical recovery, meaning they no longer meet the diagnostic criteria for BPD. This is not a permanent life sentence of unmanageable agony.
Which is such a hopeful message. And it brings us to Sarah, the artist from the text.
Sarah's story is so inspiring.
Her early paintings were incredibly dark. They were essentially her raw, dysregulated nervous system just thrown onto a canvas.
But through therapy, she processed her history.
Yeah, she didn't erase her intensity, she channeled it. As she built those new neural pathways we just talked about, her canvases transformed into bright, vibrant art.
And she even started hosting art therapy workshops, utilizing her emotional depth to help others heal.
That's such a beautiful full circle moment.
Yeah.
And Sarah's workshops highlight the second pillar of healing.
Which is community. Clinical therapy rewires the brain, but community provides the necessary social buffering.
Yeah, the realization that you don't have to white-knuckle the helm of the boat alone. There are massive communities out there right now.
So many great resources.
The text mentions platforms like bpdrecovery.com and dailystrength.org. They provide spaces where people can say, hey, my brain is doing the extreme splitting thing today.
And then 50 other people reply, mine too. You aren't crazy. Here's how I handled it.
That shared reality is the ultimate antidote to the childhood invalidation we talked about earlier.
It really is. The primary challenge of this condition is learning to trust an environment that previously felt entirely unpredictable and unsafe.
And community proves that you can be seen in your messiest state and still be accepted.
It provides that consistent, empathetic mirror that was missing.
Okay, so we've covered the neurobiology, the therapeutic mechanisms like CBT, and the power of community. What does this mean for you, the listener, tomorrow morning?
Let's extract those actionable daily practices.
Right, because even if you don't have a clinical diagnosis, if you just struggle with intense emotional swings or high-stress environments, these are grounded in solid psychology.
Absolutely. Number 1 is establishing a daily reflection practice.
What does that look like?
Just set aside 5 minutes at the end of the day to acknowledge the joys and the frictions. The goal isn't to solve the problems. It is simply to observe them without judgment.
So just noticing what happened.
Exactly. This practice actively builds that internal gray area and strengthens the prefrontal cortex.
Okay, number 2. Set a small daily goal and genuinely celebrate the victory. And I don't mean this in a patronizing way.
No, it's a huge deal.
When your nervous system is dysregulated, maintaining executive function is a Herculean task. If your goal was to send a difficult email without spiraling into anxiety, and you did it, that is a neurological win.
Claim it. You don't need a physical trophy under your pillow to validate the effort.
Exactly. Okay, what's number 3?
Number 3, step outside. This sounds simple, but bilateral stimulation, the physical act of walking left, right, it actually helps the brain process emotional distress.
Oh, wow. So the physical movement matters.
Yeah, it physically shifts your perspective and helps regulate the nervous system by engaging both hemispheres of the brain.
That's a great tip. And finally, number 4, seek out a trusted confidant.
Yes. Share your day.
Get the swirling catastrophic thoughts out of your head and into the air. Sometimes simply hearing yourself say the fear out loud strips the anxiety of its power.
It's so true. You realize the monster in the closet is just a shadow.
Those are vital, scientifically backed grounding techniques. But as we wrap up, I know you had a final thought you wanted to leave our listeners with today.
I do. We began by describing this complex emotional landscape as a volume knob stuck at maximum. And the pain and exhaustion of that intensity are undeniable.
Very real.
But I want you to consider this. If you possess the sheer resilience to navigate that Category 5 storm, to rewire your own neurobiology, and to find your center, does that not equip you with a profound, almost superhuman empathy?
Wow. Because you have survived the deepest, darkest waters imaginable.
Exactly. You intimately understand the hidden, quiet storms that everyone else is fighting. The very sensitivity that once caused so much pain becomes the source of unparalleled connection.
You don't lose the intensity, you just learn how to focus it outward to understand others.
Exactly right.
The storm becomes the source of your greatest empathy. That is an incredibly powerful place to leave this. Thank you so much for diving into the depths with us today. Keep seeking nuance, keep celebrating the neurological victories, and remember that even when the volume gets overwhelmingly loud, you have the ability to learn how to operate the soundboard. Take care.